Welcome, everybody. We survived. We made it. We're still alive. Some of us had successful stints in rehab. Others are facing a grim determination to keep this going. Definitely not sober, but I think a lot of us have downgraded to a milder form of alcohol. I know I'm drinking beer today. So before we get started, Alex, Pips, why don't you tell us what you're drinking? And then we can introduce our special guest reviewer for the first part of episode 2 of The Wheel of Prime.
Well, I have a nice Corona La Cerveza, so got a handful of these, hoping they're going to carry me through to the evening. Pips, what you got?
I made myself I think a fist of rye mash bourbon old fashions, and yeah, I think that's not going to get me through. I've already requested refills from my wife slash wait staff for the night.
Oh my, you got an assistant already. Oh, it sounds like an upgrade. Um, Anyways, for those of you who have continued to watch these videos, congrats for making it through episode 1. Today, for the first third of episode 2, we're going to be joined by a special guest reviewer, Ozzymodo, who we know from the Whitecloaks and now the Discord where we've all been banished to. Ozzymodo is a very, very long time Wheel of Time fan. We're super excited to have him along for this. Ozzy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, specifically what you're drinking and your connection to the Wheel of Time?
Sure. I'm drinking Bodhisattva, which is an India Pale Ale from Georgetown Brewery in Seattle. They make excellent beers, and I think the Seattle area is one of the best microbrew spots in the universe. So that'll be putting a hurting on me for the duration of the show here. I'm one of the older White Cloaks, I think. Kind of been a nerdy type for a long time. Read Tolkien in the 70s. I started reading Wheel of Time, got the books from the Science Fiction Book Club, and I saved up the first 4, and he was only supposed to write 7, so I thought, all right, I'll start reading these, and by the time it shouldn't be a long wait, and that just shows you how stupid I am, because, when he didn't even get to book 11, maybe 10 or 12 years later, and then, of course, the unfortunate passing, and then we got it finished maybe 20 years after I started reading it. So anyway, that's me, and love Wheel of Time. I think it's the second greatest series of books in the fantasy genre.
Bold
After
take on a
Tolkien,
Wheel of Time.
After Tolkien, yep,
he's
after
a,
Tolkien,
a true fantasy lit purist.
yeah.
I can tell you, yeah, you've been reading it probably longer than anyone I've met on White Cloaks or well, maybe Trip. She's been reading the books as they kind of came out, but I don't know if she got started when there was only 4 of them out. So
Yeah,
that's
I have 2 sets of the books. I have the Science Fiction Book Club set because I had to, have a matching set. They're actually in a smaller binding. And then, of course, they always came out 30 days after they came out in B. Dalton or whatever, Coles. So I actually started buying the hardbacks because I needed to read them right away. So I actually have 2 sets of the books in hardback, except I'm missing the first 3 in the large size. So someday I'll probably collect those. So,
and each of those would have been a first edition kind of
yep,
the
they're all first edition. Yep.
that's amazing. I was checking my own Wheel of Time hardbacks. I have from Lord of Chaos onward in first edition, but nothing else is really able. You can't really find those. I think Eye of the World first edition only 50,000 were printed. So
Yeah, that's
Wow.
going to be a tough one. Yeah.
anyway,
The one good thing about the show, I will say, is it started me on a reread because I'm trying to cleanse the palate, and I'm really enjoying the reread after waiting for X years before the books. So that part has been a lot of fun. I'm in Winter's Heart, and it's better than I remember, as Dain pointed out to me a couple books ago in my reread. He said you're going to like it better than you thought, and he's right.
yeah,
So
there
I'm
isn't the
in Lord of
baggage of
Chaos
waiting
on
for it.
mine.
yeah,
The White Cloak palette cleanse is real.
it is real, guys. Anybody listening, get on it.
Fires of heaven for me.
Yep.
Um, Alex, I think you're too busy, right? Or where are you at in
Uh,
your
I'm in,
reread?
I'm in the middle of Shadow Rising, actually.
Oh, excellent. So
Oh,
we're
good
all
Oh,
one.
fantastic.
okay.
And just to point out, I've never done the books on tape / that's how old I am. Books on CD, whatever you do now, stream the books. So I don't know how to pronounce any of these things. It's just whatever my brain said that word sounds like. That's what I say. So I apologize for mispronunciations.
That's all right. The audiobooks mispronounce things half the time. I did the audiobooks fairly early, and so I always said Tarvalon, but it's Tarvalon if you listen to Robert Jordan.
No, he's wrong.
And actually, in Lord of Chaos in the audiobook, if anyone else has caught this one, there is a line, and I'm curious, Dain, maybe you can tell me if this is a misprint in the printed version or if this is audiobook exclusive. Uh, Rand apparently reaches for Sidar in Lord of Chaos when he first goes and finds Varen and Alana in the old city in Camelin.
I'm
So
gonna have to reread
something
that.
for a later discussion. But anyway.
Well, if only one mistake out of 4 million words,
Yeah,
if that
If
was
the
what.
show could be anything like that, we would be happy people.
absolutely.
Anyways, Ozzy, thanks for joining us. We're gonna try and get through this. Like I said, the first third. That puts us right around to the COVID-inspired bat vomiting scene in this episode. Um, it's free form discussion. I'm going to be the one pushing us to pause more frequently to get us past the YouTube algos. Pips has offered to be time cop the other way to kind of keep us moving along. Let's try and keep our discussions really about the scene in question and the episode. But if these things branch out into where they further impact either something in a later episode or within the books or some conflict or any type of topic. This is freeform discussion. So, with that, I guess let's roll in and meet ourselves, the noble Whitecloaks.
Let's get it going. So, I meant to say this last time. Udo Bruzewitz directed these first two episodes, and she's
Yes.
really bad at her job. Like, the land entrance is just terrible. But I did like the decision to shoot this live rather than green screening. Like this would have taken a lot of effort and a lot of coordination to do.
It's a drone shot, isn't it?
It is, but the tents and all of the people moving, that is impressive. That said, there's a lot of technical errors here. So I'm going to say them
Do you want to
now
pause it
and
and
let you
discuss?
guys.
Yeah, pause it and go through your list here. We want to hear the camp of approximately 12 white cloaks. What are all the technical problems?
That was
Okay.
apropos. Alex, he paused on the horse's ass, so I like it.
All right,
Go.
perfect. Okay, so number one, you're about to
Pips
see
is better.
the Indian slave boy put down the meal on the table.
Yeah.
Look at the picture on the table, and tell me that doesn't look like a Brita picture. It is certainly not glass.
Okay, we'll get to that, but you probably have got way more technical stuff than Brita filters.
Well, number two is I believe the boxes for the Brita filter are in the shot. Look at Velda's left shoulder, and then look to the right
Okay,
on your.
you need to advance the screen, the screen
Yeah.
to the spot that you're talking about here. 'Cause
Okay.
I got to see this.
Pips can't control himself looking at that horse's ass.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's looking too good.
For your victory today.
There you go.
The picture is right here.
On the
Like-
left there with wine.
Yep. Look at the spout, the nozzle. That's not
Okay.
glass. That is plastic. And then if you look at the Indian slave boy's right elbow, you will see
Yep.
some white stuff with what looks like black circles and blue. It almost looks like a box. I'm about 80% sure that those are the filters that they took out of their picture.
It's a classy looking Brita filter, even if that's what it is. But
Yeah.
Oh man. I almost want to say I don't believe it because like how? Like literally $100 million budget or whatever the obscene amount they spent on this show. Like how? But also, let's be honest here. There's almost no level of bad production quality or idiocy that I wouldn't on some level fundamentally believe this show committed.
I'm on Google right now seeing if there's a Brita filter jug or whatever that's this stylish. I'm not entirely sure.
Regardless, it is clearly plastic. That is not how glass is formed. Like you do not make glass with like hard pointed spouts. That is clearly plastic, and you can clearly see that the silver top is placed into the plastic. Like it's not like
Yep.
that it comes around it. So that is clearly plastic.
No, I agree with you. The picture is definitely you're 100% right, I think, on the picture. I'm less convinced on the box in the background, but I'm willing to just say, yeah, sure. Let's Cinema Sins tally 1, I'll buy into it.
Let's just bring up, and I know this has kind of been said by almost everyone, but the Whitecloak's costuming, it's almost as bad as the Aes Sedai.
Oh,
Because
Yeah.
their robes, they don't look like knights. None of it's practical. It's not like they're wearing a tabard over chainmail.
you mean they're not wearing burnished breastplates and conical steel hats? They're not.
Yes.
They're not wearing that. You mean there was a very detailed description of something in the book and it wasn't delivered on screen?
It was
Oh,
completely
where have we
ignored.
seen that?
Yeah, I got to rip on that when we get to that scene where Moraine, if that's in this third, but
It's going to be in the second, third,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Well,
never
fortunately
mind.
or
Then I'll rip
unfortunately.
on it now. The
Yeah, go ahead.
uniforms just they're terrible. I mean, how hard is it to make cheap armor? Look at John Borman's Excalibur from 1980 or whenever that was made. That was whatever 40 years ago. They couldn't at least make armor that good for the White Cloaks.
Yeah, but they only had $100 million to spend
Yeah.
on season 1. Like, I mean, what are
And John Borman probably had a
so
million.
I heard there was this thing called COVID too. So like
Yeah.
the set design obviously was affected by that.
But still, like
That
their
they started filming in early 2018. So yeah, COVID definite.
You and your facts, okay?
Yeah.
We needed you to get on board.
Start taking the copium. Yeah, no, I think it's funny almost in the sense of like that the Wheel of Time is a thing, that the Age of Legends happened in like the 70s, 80s, and 90s when it comes to set design, and like then the world broke, and for whatever reason, people can't make armor correctly. Like, I mean, The Witcher is more famous for their terrible armor, but like Wheel of Prime deserves quite a bit of flack for the White Cloak stuff. It's just terrible. Like,
Yeah, they're heavy cavalry for the most part.
except here they're wearing robes that would actually ride up their legs, and they need divided skirts for riding. I mean, Robert
So-
Jordan was very explicit about
I'm
that.
okay. I'm
So-
okay
so we had-
with a questioner having no armor, for example. But Vald is not a questioner, right?
So we also
he is, yeah,
I
he
think
is
you're right
here.
on that. We had a couple conversations offline about like the nature of the White Cloaks, and I think that you see the direction that Ragnar went with the White Cloaks in like they're some sort of a like ministerial sort of a like a clergy kind of organization, whereas I always thought that the White Cloaks, if you took the description of the White Cloaks in the books and you replaced the sunburst with a cross,
Right.
they're Knights Templars.
Yeah, Templars.
Right. So they're religious zealot is a thing that fits into that category.
Yep.
But they're a martial organization first and a religious organization second.
Agreed.
And I think that the message I think extended into trying to make this religious organization into this, completely twisted, no redeeming qualities, bad guy organization. And we're left with just, okay, so are the White Cloaks, are the Children of the Light Knights Templar with a little bit of Spanish Inquisition kind of, sprinkled in there? Or are they just a bunch of robed monks with quarterstaffs that, instead of brewing beer on the side, they eat weird little pigeon things?
We're gonna talk about that. Yeah,
I don't.
All right.
That was
Alex,
that
do you want to
was, yeah.
move us ahead if you
keep it moving.
had any
We always walk
technical things
Yeah,
to it?
I'm gonna keep drinking.
But the armor are on or pauldron, so that's the arm.
Who is he
protection.
looking at right now?
He's looking at
He's
the
looking
burning.
at
Oh,
the Aes
that's
Sedai.
right. He's looking at the Aes Sedai. Okay.
Not only
All
that,
right.
he's trying to have a conversation with her when he can see that she's gagged and on fire.
Well, yeah, because the Whitecloaks are not a serious organization. They're cartoonish villains.
She is gagged. Why are you asking her a question?
Because that's
I
what,
like
that's what
I like
crazy
that they
villains
chopped her
do in
hands
Hollow.
off and didn't like bind them in any way. Like she would have died due to blood loss. Like what is this?
Maybe they cauterized it.
They did not.
Yeah. Oh God.
They did not. That ring came off that finger super easily. Apparently they wear really loose ring
Well, all
Yeah.
the blood
Pops,
leaked
they,
out of the hand. Who knows?
furs, I suppose.
Alex, can you pause here?
This is my third sin is coming up. Actually, it's a combination of my third and fourth. Is like notice how like bloody his hands are, and he's not going to leave any blood on her face. He's not going to
But he
leave any blood on the
he le-
ring, and the ring is going to go right on the chain with nothing more than a loud clinking noise, despite the fact that that's not at all how chains work.
But there is going to be blood left on the cup.
There
I'll
is
point out
going
that
to be
that cup is,
Yep.
is
Thumbprint.
mirrored,
Yep.
and they probably spent all the CGI in this scene to make sure that you don't see the camera and the reflection. That's where that comes from. But there's a couple of things here. She's gagged. He's asking him a question, and her hands are cut off. Neither the one power doesn't require vocal or semantic components for you D&D nerds. It also doesn't require material components. And in a later episode, he basically admits to that or says that he knows that and establishes it, or that at least they're being consistent with canon of the show, or sorry, of the books. So why the hell isn't she channeling here?
Yeah, there's
It's not
no
like
way
she-
for him to block her. Don't have fork root yet. Yeah,
Because it would be
it's
inconvenient
ridiculous.
to the plot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the plot needs to happen. We need to establish that
Well,
Valde is the Joker.
Yeah.
So none of this makes any sense. The Whitecloaks are listed as being a threat several times early on in the books to Aes Sedai, but it's always in the context of, even a stray arrow can kill, or you could get exhausted, or they could do something. But holy shit, the Whitecloaks are not the threat that this scene is trying to paint them as. In fact, one of the best early scenes in the books involves me. It's where I get manhandled in the rain in Barelon. And you talk about a way to establish a strong female character is you introduce a foil like Dain Bornhold, who's a piece of shit, and then have Moraine basically bitch slap him through the town, turn into a giant.
I think that's going to be a
hop over
better
wall.
discussion. A better discussion to have when we actually have that scene where Moraine
Okay.
meets the White Cloaks versus how it happened in the books. Because I think you're right.
Yeah.
Strong female character. Moment number 78 swung and missed.
As opposed to what she does in the show. But yeah, that's for next episode.
And then the only other thing that I'll add to this part of this atrocious scene is his line here is that Aes Sedai know, or whatever, that sometimes brutality is the only path to mercy. That sounds profound if you're an idiot or you can't think about it. But literally, I think the writer here took a thesaurus, found a word, and then chose its antonym. So sometimes brutality is the only path to its antonym. Like it makes no sense. In what way is brutality the only path to mercy? It's never explained again. It's a throwaway line. It's supposed to make him look cartoonishly villainous, but the only people who can sit here, digest that, and think that this is good writing have a double-digit IQ. That's the only way I can reconcile it.
Well,
Also, if we
the
can-
whole
No.
twisted path. It's the whole twisted path to, twisting logic. There's no such thing as good and evil, right? So he's like trying to show that he can, I'm not evil. Brutal is good. So
Dain, I'm going to disagree with you here because this is a classic example of an instance where the writer took something from the book, a completely opposite situation, dropped it in the middle of a scene for no reason. It lacked any context, and it just makes everything look stupid. This
Where
is
is this in
this
the
is
books?
this is Elias talking to Perrin about potentially having to kill Egwene because of the Ravens. And
Fuck off, show.
right, and it's just, I can even I've
What?
even seen this argued like on the Reddits where it's like, well, what are you talking about? This is exactly what Elias said. So I mean, the answer to this criticism is just that um, cutting and pasting a scene without any of the relevant context and like the personal relationships that happens doesn't mean it's not terrible. Not only does it ruin the individual line from the book, but it also ruins the scene because the scene becomes nonsense because they wedged it in here. They do
Yeah.
it
This was
frequently
from
in
the
this
fucking
show.
book. I did not recognize that this was from the Elias part. Thanks for pointing that out.
Point to Alex for seeing the Easter egg.
Hey, before we
But this
move
is
on
like-
here, I just want to
This is
tally
more
for
like
the
an
official
Easter
count.
dump.
I just want to tally for the official count. Representation villain number 2 in the series. The first was Leandrin. Second here. Really, Patton Fane, maybe an honorable mention at this point. We don't find out he's the villain yet. But right now, we're up to 2 in the first, 1 minute of episode 2. Good job, Reginor.
I guess at least this one has a personality, but yeah.
Hey, Leandrin's personality is that she really digs persimmons. I don't know what you're talking about.
This sound effect here cracks me up. It is so loud. Like, and it's just like
I
it
don't like
magically slides on. All right, now look
Can we
at his
steal
hands
that
here.
sound effect for our use whenever we tally sins against the episodes?
Okay, look at where his middle finger is in relation to this cup. Like, look at where his fingernail is. Like, that's
Yep.
where you would expect the blood print, right?
Sure. But they have to CGI this whole cup, right? Because they got to get rid of the camera and the reflection.
Yeah.
And there's no way those flames are real either. Those are CGI and they look it. So
Yeah. Look where the
Fact that they
finger.
would've-
Look where the fingerprint is on the cup.
Yeah, it's lower.
Yeah, it's way on the bottom, right next to the stem.
The fact that they would have CGI'd flames just annoys me so much. Like, really?
and all
right.
that being said, it's not
There we
the worst
go.
cold open of the show.
We're getting into Rosamund Pike, Daniel Henney, Zoe Robbins, Madeline Madden. How deep do they bear? Oh, there we go. 5. So our own Rand al'Thor, number 5 in the cast roll.
Then you
So
got
we
the
get
three.
the three Taverin in order.
All right, I'm gonna let you guys go on this because I have a lot to say about this.
So the only thing that I have to say is more broad, and we'll see it towards the end. So I'll knock this out now when there's maybe less to say about this, is the fact that this entire cold open has nothing to do with the dragon, the story. It's about the Aes Sedai. I mean, there's the pattern and the wheel and the loom of time, all that stuff. Interesting,
not-
sure, but it's
not-
it's a female empowerment sort of like intro that if anybody who read the book series would have never thought that a tapestry about the White Tower showing Moraine channeling is what should be the intro. That's all I'm going to throw out there. This was piece of evidence number 1 as you watch the series. Like, oh, this is not really the Wheel of Time.
The Chronicles of the White Tower, basically.
Yeah.
That is a perfect description.
Point too. That was Sneed's point. Is this Wheel of Time show? They didn't want it to be about the dragon. They wanted it to be about Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
And what's the last image you see before you resolve to this dragon eating its own tail or snake eating its own, or is it even eating its own tail? It's 7 women in different colors.
7 highly diverse women, I'll have you know.
Which we haven't explained at all yet, right? In the
Nope.
show.
Nope.
So if you're a noob, it means nothing.
Yep.
All right. Lay it
Isn't it-
on us, Alex.
We can keep going.
Okay. So
oh yeah. Go
if
ahead.
you're going to copy a bunch of shit from Game of Thrones, why didn't you copy the opening? This is just some sort of stupid listing of names with some sort of like vaguely artistic visuals. Game of Thrones took their central motif, that being the gears of politics, and used it to visually inform the geography of the continent and give like clues and hints about each kingdom. They even like foreshadowed events that would be happening in the season. So they turned their opening into a geographical exposition dump that so helped with the world building. And I don't know why that isn't the standard for every fantasy show going forward. Like, part of the reason that this show seems so generic is that there's no map. Like, it doesn't seem like they're traveling anywhere. They go to a place, they do a thing, they go to the next place, they do the thing, and it just sort of...
But you skip a step. They go to a place, they do a thing, then 1 month later is displayed on the bottom of the screen, and they do another thing.
Yeah.
Alex, you're making a very, very good point. And it's not just Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones with the intro, yeah, it was... that's definitely something you should think about aping. But even Lord of the Rings, the films, I remember them. There was the discussion in the annexes where they needed to have a good scene with a map in it where the characters are explaining where all the different parties are. I think it happens in the Two Towers and in the caves with Faramir. But they brought in a map and they had Faramir talking with his commanders about what the current situation is, who's being attacked where, and it just lets you clue in the characters as to where they are relative to each other. And
Yeah, that Osgiliath is on the other side of the river.
Yeah, fantasy stories and maps, I mean, they go hand in hand. I mean, that's
you could work in some Indiana Jones type thing where, at least you're kind of showing a map and you're showing them moving on the map. That's how they move time and move Indy in the first movie.
And that is exactly what they should have done. They should have kept this same thread motif, but instead of weaving a cast of racially diverse women, they should have weaved together a map of the continent with the different nations in different colored threads. They should have weaved like a picture of each ruler next to the capital city. And then the Taveran should have been the gold thread that traveled from the two rivers to where they're going. And each episode should have been different as the length of the gold thread got closer and closer to their destination. And they should have done what...
I think those are great ideas.
Freaking awesome, dude.
I mean, it could have been. It's just my only reluctance to that is that's not really what Wheel of Time was about, especially in the early books. It wasn't a political drama, and this goes back to that Sanderson interview that I sent to you, where he's basically detailing what Ragnar was really trying to do is bring some of the world building from later books and dump it in the first season, which is why we get this annoying White Tower politics stuff before it's been properly established. But that in and of itself is a bit of a shit in everyone's mouth because some people like the earlier books.
I think you meant a piss in everybody's mouth, right?
No, this one's a total shit, but it could be both. Maybe it actually is both. It's shit and pissing in our mouths.
Hey, Dain, you reminded me of something when you said Ragnar, because I call him Rafenstein because he's basically like Frankenstein. He's taken a really good thing and then pieced a bunch of crap on it and made a monster. So to me, he's Rafenstein. And he's made Rafenstein's monster.
I've actually got a little bit more on that. I guess. So pick up any copy of The Gathering Storm, Towers of Midnight, or Memory of Light. Brandon Sanderson wrote those books. But if you look at any cover, Robert Jordan's name is listed first, and it's in bigger text than Brandon Sanderson.
That was at Brandon Sanderson's insistence.
Explicitly done at his request.
That's what happens when you have a fan, an actual fan, who's continuing the legacy of something they care about.
So the idea that they didn't have, based on the books by Robert Jordan, as the last text piece on here, explicitly bigger than anybody else's and longer than anybody else's, is just a huge miss for me. And it's just, I'm not going to say it's like an indictment on Ragnar's character, because I think it was just like an oversight.
It's an indictment on Raginor's character. I'll say it for you.
All right, fair
I-
enough. And considering the intellectual vandalism that this show is, it seriously leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Great
Hey.
phrase, Alex. Intellectual vandalism. I like it.
I'll only say I probably would have been more offended if they put Robert Jordan's name on this and any more prominently, just
Well,
because of how
I
bad
think
this turned
I
out.
think the point though is that if they had the thought process to put Robert Jordan's name front and center on this product, then we wouldn't have gotten the product that we got. You know, so I agree with you. If they took a giant shit and just put a little Robert Jordan name tag on it, I would be offended. But I don't think that those two things would have coexisted.
Yeah, if they honestly respected Robert Jordan, they wouldn't have done what they did.
Yep.
And one more prop, Alex, for Brandon Sanderson. So, I hadn't really read him at all before he did this. And of course, I went out and bought everything he ever wrote. And I'm still buying everything he ever wrote at this point. So, good move for him. I thought he did a good job. It was a tough row to hoe.
Yep.
Going back to our hoe discussion. So,
I have.
All right, let's press on.
Yeah,
all right.
let's press on. I have a lot of respect for Sanderson. I don't necessarily agree with everything he does.
Sure.
But the man is a man of character. I'll give him that no matter what.
Just so everyone's tracking, there are 6 horses in this scene. So we've confirmed that at least 6 horses now were cast.
Pips, there's Mandar. Go easy. Be gentle.
I'm still looking for Bella. I need to see those furry little fetlocks.
He was there somewhere.
These Trollocs are bad.
They are so bad. I mean, we talked through this in the recap and in a previous episode. Like, don't show the shitty CGI monster in full light. Like, how fucking hard is that?
Oh my god.
Oh, and now they're running like dogs. At least the water's splashing up.
That's true. It's true. They could have done the opposite of the episode 1 cold open, where there's no wind in the grass and there's shadows on the fake imaginary person.
Alex, I presume we're just stopping here for algo reasons, but
Yep,
we could probably
just
keep going because
beating
nothing's
the
happening.
algo.
And
Like,
that-
literally,
so
how bad?
let's just establish
Why
it's already.
is he
it's already
carrying a
night.
torch? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so here we're getting to Terran Ferry.
That's true.
right?
They left at dusk. We just saw them running daytime, and now it's full dark. Fuck off, show.
So it's a little bit longer than how it takes in the actual books. I think the bigger issue here is that Terran Ferry is not a village; it's a hut. Although I
Yep.
think they yak about there being a town some way up. Master Hightower doesn't have his team of haulers; it's just him by himself.
Ugh.
And it's been a full 24 hours since Moraine got that sword through her
Well,
chest.
here's Moraine lying because she says the only thing they fear is deep water. It's just not true. They fear the dark wind, the black wind, whatever the heck it's called. They fear the
Man,
Madro.
Oh man,
that
that's
is
kinds
a
of stuff.
great freaking
Oh,
point.
great
nice.
call
Gosh,
out.
that's
Ozzy.
good. I think so many of us have just kind of, we were just in like a drug-induced stupor by this point in the episode
wow.
already. That it didn't even trigger. But you're 100% right. There's no way she could have made that statement. It's not.
Correct.
It's not sort of allegorical. There's no sort of dodging. She's just straight up lying.
She could have just said they fear deep water. But if you say the only thing, then she's lying.
And she's
Yeah.
and she's incapable of saying an untrue word. That gets established later in this episode. I think I pointed out when the Trollocs are invading the Two Rivers again for the second time, where she says, "There's nothing I can do." That's also an incorrect statement. There is something she
If you're
could
the
do.
writer or the editor of this show, how do you not go back? Okay, you wrote this, you wrote your first draft. How do you not go back and say, you know what, this right here, we should change this because
Because the writers didn't read the books. We
Yeah.
know that
Agreed,
the
yeah.
majority of the writing room didn't read the books,
It
and
just
apparently Raginor, the super fan, and Misara, the hired official super fan, were just like, fuck it, this is the least problematic thing we've done to Robert Jordan's works this episode.
But they're so stupid. Know your audience. The people that read Wheel of Time are, in theory, the people that thrive on these kind of details. I mean, why do we love Lord of the Rings? Why do we love Wheel of
They've
Time? Because of the
explicitly
depth.
said we're not their audience. The Whitecloaks were
true.
not their audience.
And that's
They
so
were
ridiculously
appealing to
stupid.
people who were just already on a streaming service and were willing to tune in for this show.
Which is so ridiculous when you think about it, because you know the importance of spreading by word of mouth. So why you have to produce something
Right.
that appeals to the existing book readers. Otherwise, you'll get word of mouth. It'll just be bad word of mouth, and your show will go down.
And that's
in
part of why
flames.
Game of Thrones kicked ass in the early years, right?
So what we skipped up to this from the books, right, is Moraine doing the awesome thing of like making a giant fog bank, the whole Drakkar. We missed Rand's initial channeling. We missed a
Great
whole bunch
scene.
of really good stuff going on here. And
Yep.
also, we're about to have missed the whole interaction between Lan, Moraine, the ferryman, and his sort of like handlers, right? That establishes that like Moraine, pretty intelligent, sort of forward-thinking individual. Lan, like on the same level, predicting what she's doing, ready for anything. And like it's a pretty good scene of them like having to sort of size themselves up against these ferrymen, convince them to not try and rob them in the middle of the night. And then
Yeah.
also what we'll see on the other side. So we can play the tape here, but there's a lot here to be said.
Well, and they could have
So-
even used that, because why did Rand tell Bella to run? Bella runs because Bella was carrying Egwene. So,
Yeah.
they could have used that for their message, so to speak, right? Because that's why he cared so much about making sure Bella didn't fall behind.
Right? Textual simping when we can have made up simping? I'm actually gonna.
We could have had fantasy magical simping.
Right. I'm actually going to take a step back here because a lot of people missed this one. It's the line before the one shown on the screen. She says, "Walls won't stop Trollocs."
Well, hey,
Another lie.
in world, we know that's true because we saw it at Tarwin's Gap.
So that is exactly what I was about to say. Is somebody more cynical than myself might give them credit for foreshadowing here. That Tarwin's Gap was not an abortion because of COVID, but it was in fact, hinted
They
that
planned it
Trolloc.
the whole time.
Yes, that Trollocs had these abilities the whole time. However, I'm not sure that I'm willing to give them credit for, talking as a writing room,
Alex,
thinking about the
We've
CGI.
talked about this. We've
They
talked about
probably
this,
fu-
Alex. You're not allowed to defend them when you're this sober.
Well, that's
No,
what
so-
that's
The
what I
thing
was
is,
saying.
they fucked up, right? And they realized that they had Moraine speak a line that could technically be deemed incorrect if Tarwin's Gap's wall stopped it. So in order to get your consistency, they made sure that Tarwin's Gap had to fall. Just wait, we're going to have this line affirmed by a later scene where Trollocs basically have no fear of anything until they get to deep water.
Yeah,
It's like the Dragon Reborn. It wasn't a mistake. It was intentional.
Fuck this show.
Oh, Lordy.
Keeping our another piss line. Matt really has a sort of urinary fixation.
Yeah, we're gonna have to keep track of how many times Matt says piss.
My son's gonna be here soon. The worst.
He hands him like 3 like copper coins. I think in the actual book he basically like, here's a bag of gold.
Right. They're like, get your ass up. Here's some gold.
They're
Other half when we
stingy,
get across.
you know.
Moraine
Yeah,
walked
he has
up
to
to
go-
Hightower like a fucking NBA player walking into a strip club. And instead, she gives him 3 coins. Like, goddamn, guys, come on.
And why is he sleeping outside? Because
The plot
books,
needs him
they
to
knock
be.
they knock on it. No, but
once
they
the
knock- they knock
ferry
on
at
his-
night.
But they knock on his door, right? And they wake him.
They had to
from
wake
the
him up.
town.
Yeah.
That's a sweet beard.
So
Let's take a step further. Why is there a ferry for
is the
a
first
river
real
that's
beard.
100 feet?
That's true. Why is there a ferry for a creek?
if this is the only way in or out of the 2 rivers as it's supposed to be, how did that barge take Pat and Fane's wagon across, for example? Like, none of this makes sense, but whatever.
That's an interesting point. The barge is way too small. Yeah, good eye.
Although it is able apparently to carry 6 horses, so.
Well, 5 horses in Bella.
Bella's a man horse in this show.
That's right.
Bella's a real horse in this show. It's a real horse that identifies as a female pony.
Do you think they were like super proud of themselves for that line? You're not the type of woman that hears no often. I am not.
Oh,
Like, oh my God, people, stop!
Look at how
doing
close
this.
they're packed on there. You're
That is a
100%
big-
right.
that is a big
There's no
ferry.
way. There's no way it would fit the team of horses and Paddon Fane's wagon. No way.
so-
You're right there.
And here, the practical, they stop running because they're walking
Oh,
on stilts. As
son.
No, they're not walking on stilts. These are the fucking midget Trollocs.
Oh,
So here's
So-
one. Pause it.
See, he's
Pause
so
it
afraid.
before it goes too far.
So all of
Thanks,
these
Ozzy.
Trollocs, I feel like, are horned regular Trollocs. I didn't see any bird beaks, any wolf snouts. We've talked about that before. This scene, I think, definitely creates the illusion that they have none. So they went to the effort in episode 1 to give one a bird beak, and then here they're like, we gave them a bird beak once. Like, what can they fucking want from us?
and let's not forget what the point of this scene or this part of the books was. For one, the Trollocs did not come up to Terran Ferry. They didn't.
Yeah,
come
because
right to the
Moraine was
ones that-
smart. She had a
Yeah.
fucking plan.
And the plan was, one of it was to sink the ferry. They at least did as well. But she made the fog bank and then she cast it so that
Yes.
it went to both sides. It went upriver and downriver, and it forced the Murdral to send the
Waste
Drakkar,
time. To waste time.
and that let them camp for the night, but also then open up a gap on them. So once they realized where they were going, and then of course they have to make the beeline for Barrelon because there is no other place for them to go. But here, okay, the Trollocs will find a way around the river eventually, unless this is the deepest river ever, and that was the only ferry on the whole fucking river. But yeah, this is just, it seems like needless TV tension. Get the army of monsters that shows up right next to her, and it completely torpedoes the believability of the scene as we go forward.
Well, I'll give them a pass for what they've done here, but I won't give them a pass on the fact that she tore apart the wine spring inn by pulling all the rocks out of the walls and destroying it. She could have just stood on the opposite bank here and just done the same thing to all these Trollocs and pulled them right into the water. That's the only thing they fear. She could have just said, "Okay, you're going to stand on the edge. I'm just going to pull you all right into the water." She didn't even got to toss them. So,
that's a very good point.
it's
And
really
there are
stupid.
there are no arrows being fired by the Trollocs. I know I said in the last episode that Trollocs.
Well, no throwing knives.
Not that either. So no throwing knives. There's no bows and arrows, even though Trollocs don't use that all the time. But Moraine doesn't fight back, even though by the three oaths she's allowed to attack Shadow Spawn. Although, as coming up when there's the three oaths discussion, the bit about Shadow Spawn in the third oath is actually omitted from the show here. And so I don't know if that's intentional or not.
How about another one? So we all agree that these male characters are entirely undercooked, right?
Yep.
How inspiring would it be if when this freaking Murdral decided to give its its intimidating scream,
Well, hey,
Randall Thor put
move
a
forward. Let us see the friggin' sandworm. Let's see it.
Or all three of them plug
like
him.
like yeah. If
You're
Randall
trying to hide who
Thor
it is, fine, have all three of them plug
put a fucking arrow through this thing's mouth.
And he didn't die, like we know in the books he wouldn't. Yeah, that would have been
Just
pretty
ripped it
sweet.
out. Yeah.
We could have
pretty badass.
established, we could have shown character and competence of two different characters at once. But that's for losers.
And even Moraine, you could be pulling them all into the water right here.
Gosh, I hadn't really thought. Well,
Look at that.
I think I did think of that when I first watched this. Like, why is she doing absolutely fucking nothing?
Exactly.
But yeah, here he comes, man.
She does nothing because she attacks no Trollocs at Terran Ferry because there
look
are
at
no
that.
Trollocs at Terran Ferry.
Look at that stupid ass bone mask on the horse.
just
Pips,
jealous.
what do you think about that mask, dude? Is that getting you a little fired up?
No, actually, the opposite of that. First of all, I just want to know what animal's bones are those?
that fit over
A bigger
the
horse?
Is it just a bigger horse? They just took a bigger horse skull
Put it
and just
over a
put it
horse
on top. Like that is the stupidest
That's
thing.
called recursion.
Like
That's a recursive
it's
horse
just,
skull. Yeah.
it's like what is the horse version of a turducken?
Oh my god.
Gosh, it's so fucking dumb.
Oh my god.
Well, it's the same horse as Mandarp, so they had to dress it up a little bit differently.
That's
right?
true. You couldn't tell. The mirror draw looks so fucking stupid too. Like they're supposed to have human faces just with no eyes,
No
and
eyes,
instead it looks like a fucking worm.
You guys saw there, Master Hightower is scared enough to basically book it up the docks,
But wants to go straight back again.
and that's what's coming. And there is no defense of this because we talked about plot conveniences before, like why is a character doing something, and it's because the plot needs him to. This is so utterly world breaking. It takes you completely out of the immersion. This is true for anyone who's read the books, but it's also true for anyone who's just picking up the series for the first time. They're all scratching their heads wondering, why the hell does that guy want to go to the other side of the river? Oh, my son's going to come. And it's like, it's a pretty big army and they have torches. Your son's going to see it and he's not going to be as dumb as you are and right into that. Like, what is your plan? And there is no plan. The only thing is the plot needs him to do something stupid so that Moraine can basically commit murder. But let's get to that.
I mean,
one
there is
so
no
that so that so
plan.
that Moraine can do what she does, so that Rand can be upset and angry at her. Like this is multiple levels of stupid building on each other. Like
just play it. We can have a conversation as soon as we see this happen because the deviation from the book here is just there was no need to make her so dumb, him so stupid, and Rand so worthless in this scene.
So
Pull him into the water.
What are they? Servants of the Dark, and then
the Riders of Fate.
And this is Moraine being completely reasonable, and the fact that Master Hightower here is like, okay, sounds good. Why doesn't he go along with them?
All right, Dain. So what happened in the actual books here? Lay it down for us.
So in the actual books, there are no Trollocs hot on their tail. Moraine and Lan have woken up Master Hightower, offered him gold. He looked at the gold greedily. He got all his haulers up. There was about 6 of them or something. They had a good scene with Tom Maryland flashing his knives, trying to keep the boys kind of world-wise so that they won't get robbed, kind of thing. Lan is looking intimidating. They cross to the other side, and then they pay Master Hightower the same amount once they're on the other side. And then, lo and behold, like there's already a fog billowing and going to either side of the river, so it looks kind of spooky.
Yep.
But the cable snaps and the barge or the ferry gets loose, and then it gets sucked down in a whirlpool. And then they go, odd, whirlpools on the Terran, that never happens. And Lan goes, it's ill luck, or it would be ill luck for you to lose your craft in our service. So here's some more money. So they basically
the thing about that too is
for the ferry.
so Lan, if you read the book on that, right? So Lan took the purse out. He paid him the money for the other half when they crossed, and he kept the purse out the whole time, waiting for that to happen, and then paid them again. And it was actually exactly because he was part of the team. He knew what was happening. He was on board. He's a critical member of the group here. And instead,
they knew what was going to happen. They were going to have to block away. This becomes a plot point later on because Nynaeve, who chases them, has to basically get a different ferry, or maybe she drags Master Hightower out again.
Yep.
No nonsense, and she finds her way across, so she's not going to be impeded by this either. In the show, it's not explained how Nynaeve makes it across the Terran now that the one ferry and ferryman have basically been murdered.
Didn't she unravel the ropes in the book? She just minimal power to unravel the ropes to make it the ferry go away.
That might be how it got loose. I don't recall that.
Yeah, she used
that sounds
the
right.
power she just unraveled the ropes and it started to get away, and he started to panic, and They
Well,
toss
I
in
don't
some
know what
money.
you're
Yeah,
complaining
well,
about because
remember-
we
The
saw.
whirlpool was channeled. So that much.
So
there are
was
elements in this
the
scene.
rope, because the entire thing is from Rand's point of view. So Rand's just like, wow, that
Yeah, he's
sure
like, "What
was
the hell?"
weird that rope unraveled and that a whirlpool came.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
I
thank
don't
you,
know what you
Rand,
guys
you
are
fucking
complaining about.
doofus.
They got the whole ropes unraveling. It's in the show. We see it in the episode 6 cold open when Swan Sanche unravels a fishing line. It's
Yeah,
right there, guys.
It's a
Just
key
quit
one power.
complaining.
My bad.
Quit
My bad.
complaining and just
I'll
accept
take
that
a
it's
drink of
in
beer.
there.
See, I could almost accept this change in the sense of Land cutting the rope because it was the one time a man in the show was a man of action. So like, all right, cool. Lands on the team. Like,
Oh,
I mean, I would have even
As
taken that
opposed
if
to all the Trollocs that he swung his sword sort of close to, and they sort of, sort of conveniently and helpfully sort of fell on the ground.
yep, pretty much. Oh god,
okay. Let's go
the
on ahead, but the key thing here is they wanted to kind of make something more dramatic, right? So this
Yeah.
apparently the scene in the books was intense enough, so we have to bring the Trollocs here, and not only that, we need somebody to die. No one died at Terran Ferry.
Correct.
Here,
Ugh.
inexplicably, we need to have this Master Hightower die, and it opens up a can of worms. We've already
True.
seen a little bit of worms with the Moraine lying or saying words that are not true, even maybe when she doesn't mean it. But here, she is not allowed to harm people or use the one power as a weapon, is the key thing. So there's an open question coming up as to whether or not she's still actively channeling when the whirlpool comes.
Yeah,
But
Dane,
well,
what's our
we
next stopping point for our drink refills and bathroom break here?
It's
lead
right,
us into that. We'll have that discussion.
Yeah, so it's right after Master Hightower dies. We'll go get some drink refills. We might cut the episode. Um,
All right.
well, I
and load
actually
somebody
roll the
separately
tape.
up on-
there's one more significant thing from the book point of view
Okay.
here, which is this is the first time that Rand, Matt, and Perrin are basically told to look and act like warriors. And they square up and they do it and they look intimidating.
You're
And
talking about in the books.
yeah, in the
'Cause
books.
they don't do that in the
Yes.
show.
No,
Yes.
absolutely
In the
not. They
books,
never do.
they're squared off against the haulers to convince the haulers not to rob them. You're right. Yeah, that was a good scene.
Yeah, and it explicitly mentions that the haulers are looking at 6'5" jacked Rand with a sword, and basically are like, "Nah, I want none of that. Let's keep this moving."
Well, and the whole fact it establishes early that Rand, who has no idea how to use that sword, it establishes early that he just somehow, probably because he's the Dragon Reborn and he has another man who is, maybe more familiar with the sword living inside of him, sort of, that he's the reincarnated spirit. He just naturally looks like the sword belongs to him. And that comes up a few more times where, like, yeah, he's some farm boy with a sword, maybe not very threatening, but somehow he just seems like he knows how to use the sword.
Yeah, Gareth
I don't
Bryn
even-
makes
I
that
don't even-
comment. The sword belongs with him, and the only one who
Yes.
doesn't really believe
Yes.
is the biggest asshole in the series, Dane Bornhold. He's too young.
Well, I'm even going to take it a
That
step.
Dane Bornhold guy, I think we can
What a
all
piece of
agree that
shit.
dude is exactly, a piece of shit.
Well, I'm even going to take it a step farther. I think it's extremely relevant when it comes to Rand meeting Swan in the cat crossing the courtyard, in the sense of it's like, dude, if you act, you're a big dude. If you act like you're confident and you know what's happening, people are going to believe you. Like they're
Yeah.
going to think you're that
Human
guy.
nature. Human nature. Right?
Scenes we will never see in the show.
Yeah,
Yes.
Until
I'll
we
take
create
scenes we'll never
until-
see for in 600
Until-
hours.
until we crater the market value of this IP, pick it up on the cheap, and then get a proper animated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
I
you know
bring
what?
that up.
Bury it and
I mean, I bring that up because I'm going to be honest. When I was a kid, that bit right there, and then the next part in The Great Hunt, like that was a thing that I internalized, and that has impacted my life in a positive way. That was a lesson that I took from this book franchise that mattered to me, and not seeing it here was really kind of depressing.
Well,
Well,
what
you
do you
gotta-
think? What do you
I
think
mean, that's
Ragnar
why it's not
internalized from
there.
this show?
Oh yeah, right. I mean, guys, we can't have can't have men learning lessons, you know.
Raginor internalized a worm dildo from this show.
Yeah, right.
Alex, you're touching the live wire of why these guys totally missed the boat when they made this show. Because the great thing about Wheel of Time is it touches all the bases. You know, anybody that reads that of almost any sort of viewpoint of life has a character to identify with, and positive examples, and that's good entertainment, right? You want to kind of in self-insertion, right? You want to feel, okay, I'm Rand, I'm Perrin, I'm Moraine, I'm, Egwene, whatever. And they didn't have to change that. They don't have to make it so there's winners and losers. You can have a great Rand and a great Egwene. You don't have to diminish one for the other. And that's one of the things that really pisses me off about this show, is that you don't have to tear Rand down to lift Egwene up. It's there. And it just chaps me to no end.
I know you just made a real deep and really valid point. I just want to say that the only person who's self-insertion into this show is Raginor. He is self-inserting himself just left and right.
Dude, I don't even want to picture that. You need to stop talking right now.
So that is actually seriously a conversation that I think might be worth happening on a different video. Is Rafe inserting himself as Moraine or
you guys stop,
because those are the only two options.
Ozzy's gonna have to log out. He's thinking about Raginor inserting himself.
Where's my throat pail?
From now on, the two words self-insertion will never
stop
be
it.
said
You're killing
again.
me.
It's never said again. Okay, it's been prescribed.
It's my fault. I brought it up. So
well, let's move forward.
All right, let's see the last scene here, and then I gotta do a drink refill. And well, I mean, I've been doing drink refills. Let's be honest.
So Lan is being perfectly reasonable. Yeah. My son's over there. If you go back.
Son.
All right, I gotta stop here.
Shout out to Shad and the Night's Watch.
If you go back, you'll give them a way to follow us. I can't allow it. What the actual fuck, Moraine? How about if you go back, they're going to kill you and eat you?
If you go back, they're going to insert those swords into your body.
Like
you got a little bit close there, Pips.
Hey, I went 50%. That's legal.
If this is supposed to show that Moraine is action-oriented and is only focused on her goal rather than other people, this isn't how you do it. This makes her look like a moron. Oh my god, who wrote this?
Dumber from here.
Dialogue.
She only gets dumber.
It's the writing.
She really
Alex.
does.
I mean,
she only gets dumber.
It's just terrible writing. It's just god awful.
Oh, I can't allow it.
Although, wait.
Love it.
Ozzy, we can't say this is terrible writing because the best line in the whole show is going to come up right about soon.
All right,
right about soon.
Let's see
That's Canadian for pretty soon.
Actually, real quick.
I didn't want to say now because.
Look, a man did something.
Bland cut the first thing he's actually made physical contact with his blade in
now
the entire
Moraine
episode.
Is channeling. And
So
she's using her hands and
airbending. Don't say channeling. Airbending. She's airbending.
Okay.
So this is a question that really matters for the lore here. Watch what she does, and then watch when Hightower says his line. Because to me, this makes it abundantly clear that men can see women's weaves.
Oh, God. Don't say that.
I'm about to be even more upset on
channeling.
Yep. Oh, son of a bitch.
If he can't see her weaves, how does he know that
done fucking nothing?
Yeah, holy shit. Yeah, because it's
Alex,
just a barge twisting.
How are you making this worse now?
So Master Hightower, who's got no affinity for Sadar or Sidene, is just seeing the barge start to spin. which
I
it could
mean,
be
the
doing for
only
any
other
reason
alternative, right, is that he waited until it was halfway across the river
before
of being
reacting
cut
to
loose
Lan's cutting. Yeah.
to being like, oh no, why did you cut it loose? Son of a bitch. Damn it, Alex.
Keep
Now I'm
going.
going to have to get another drink now. I can't even wait.
There we go. Best line of the fucking series.
You're
You
monsters.
eyes to die, you're monsters.
The Whitecloaks
Yeah.
are right. That's true.
Oh, the best
Now-
beard in the show just jumped in the river.
The only real beard.
So
Yeah.
arguably here, she stopped channeling, and now it's too late to do anything, although that's not clear.
Look
But
at everyone
all-
just like, oh.
All they do is they follow him on his descent down into death,
Yeah.
doing nothing.
Is that Edgar Allan Poe? Descent into the Maelstrom? There you
Yeah.
go, right there. See, they're
So
they're
wild.
just giving a shout out to
What-
American literature.
Man, what terrible CGI. When you pause this, it looks even fucking worse.
Oh, it looks terrible. This is some fucking Polar Express PlayStation 2 fucking animation. Oh my god.
Okay, can we run it until he's dead, and then we're gonna do our.
Right, that's nice.
I want.
That's nice, Dain. Run it till he's dead.
Well, it's not gonna take too long.
Okay, he's dead.
Trolloc snarling in the distance. All right, here's a good thing to pause. This is an esoteric discussion that I want to have with you guys. But was this murder? What do
No.
you guys think?
It was not.
So I know the argument you're going to make. I'm going to say the act itself was not murder, but I think you might be able to make an argument that it would be a murder conviction, depending on how you go.
Assisted suicide.
It would
I'm
not
gonna go with that.
be
All right,
because
let's leave.
okay, make your argument then, and I'll
Let's
refute.
leave aside. Let's leave aside here that Master Hightower's motivation for going across the river makes absolutely no sense in the context of said monsters.
True. Agreed.
What we have here could be construed. It's manslaughter. A man died via Moraine's actions. Maybe she didn't intend for him to die, but what we do know is she could have tied him up. She could have plucked him out of the water with the weave, or she could have wrapped him in the power.
Wrapped him with air and made him so he couldn't walk.
She definitely could have saved him. She easily could have saved him. We can all agree to that.
She neglected
Yes.
on all that front, but through her actions, someone died. And what was her action? Her action was to sink the ferry, which is a property crime. If somebody dies, even though it's through your action, but if your action was a crime, in many places, many jurisdictions, and this is a hallmark of common law, English common law, Canadian common law, wherever you go, if the action that you have was a crime itself, the act of manslaughter gets upgraded to murder in most instances.
Well,
So
they
here-
add felony murder.
felony murder. So so this is a bit of a nuance as to whether I said, did she murder?
That's a Derek Chauvin.
Okay.
Moraine is Derek
I
Chauvin.
was thinking that, but I wasn't willing to say it, dude.
So I'm not going to go with that example, but let me do a different one. So let's say instead of Moraine, you've got Moron, who is the world's greatest lasso champion. She has got a lasso on her hip, and she is the best person at roping people. And at the same time, she decides to arson a barn.
Yep.
So she lights a barn on fire.
I'm on board with her being the best and an arsonist. This show has established those things.
So
And
she's
a
the
moron.
best with a lasso, but she decided to arson someone's barn, and an idiot, call him Dain Bornhold, decides, "Holy shit! I've got some important, old collection of Playboy magazines in that barn. I got to go get them." And Moron says, "No, Dain, it's on fire. Don't go in there. You'll die." And Dain goes, "Fuck you. I love those Playboys." And he dashes for it. And instead of lassoing him and tying him down, does nothing.
It's getting a deep look into Dain Bornhold's life, but continue.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm reaching for something. But he runs into the barn inexplicably because he's idiotic, and he dies from smoke inhalation and then gets burnt to a crisp. Could have been rescued. I think that has bearing on extenuating circumstances. But the key thing is Moron was committing a serious property crime in terms of arson, and someone died as a result of it, which is manslaughter,
Yep.
and the act itself was a crime, therefore the manslaughter charge gets upgraded to murder. Now, if you can go after Kyle Rittenhouse for what he did, I'm pretty sure there's a prosecutor, somebody somewhere, who could go after Moraine for murdering Master Hightower. And with that, I'll leave it. You guys could feel free to rebut, but if you'd rather accept that I am correct and go fill up your alcohol, this might be a good place to do the mid-episode break.
So there are two counters to this. The first being
Fuck, I thought you'd be
obviously
tempted to go get more drinks.
no, my Coronas are next to me.
I miscalculated.
The indictment issue that you're stating is not the guilty verdict that you're attempting to correlate it as. The old expression is, in the case of a grand jury, a DA could indict a ham sandwich. So the possibility of indictment does not equate to her being guilty of murder. The second point is that your barn analogy falls apart in the sense that burning down the barn does not preserve her own life. If you were to make the argument that there was an axe murderer in the barn who was trying to kill her, and the only way that she could stop them was by setting it on fire and stopping the axe murderer, your analogy would be more on point.
Yes and no.
So I'm willing to actually see what the difference here.
I don't agree with the self-defense argument here. There is no self-defense. There is no self-defense. These Trollocs are on the other side of the river, and if she didn't want the ferry finding its way across for them to follow, she could have lifted the ferry up onto the far bank where it already was at. She didn't have to cut it loose and destroy it in a whirlpool. And more to the point, she could have fucking nuked all those Trollocs, and she just didn't for some.
You just cut it loose and let it drift down the river. You don't even got to do a whirlpool.
The legal argument is the action required necessary to prevent immediate and bodily harm? So the question that you would need to ask is whether or not the Trollocs could produce immediate bodily harm. To which you may have the point that it would have taken them quite a while to get the ferry back and then pursue them. However, I do not see a jury being willing to convict someone on the basis of
she's a lasso champion. She could have kept the frickin' barge tied up. They could have tied up Master Hightower.
It's not her responsible that Hightower's a dumbass, right? So
no. But I'm talking about self-defense, right? Because if what she was really worried about was Master Hightower making his way back across the river and taking the ferry, such that the Trollocs could then take the ferry and follow them, 50 Trollocs at a time.
She could have just cut the ferry loose, right?
Honestly,
just
tied up Master Hightower.
Let it go down the river.
She could have.
The ferry is worthless if you cut the cords.
Master Hightower is the only one who could pull the ferry back across, so you just take care of him. You tie him up with air, or even tie him up with regular rope against a tree if you want to be that savage about it, because those Trollocs are going to make it eventually. But
not only that, literally,
the self-defense argument doesn't work. Because you could have basically just stopped Hightower from
So most jurisdictions do not have a legal obligation to rescue. That extends to both civilians.
All I'm going to say, I think you guys are making decent arguments.
That's not my argument.
Making decent arguments, but the real question is Show Moraine doing what Book Moraine would have done? Because there's only one Moraine. The Moraine established in the book is Moraine. This is some fan fiction bullshit, and we can all clearly agree that whether or not she would have been convicted or not, this is not in keeping with Moraine's character.
Well, it's not in keeping, and the only reason I went to murder is because that implies that she was actively using the one power as a weapon.
I can't go with you here, Dain. I know you're outraged by this horseshit scene. Can't go with the murder thing because Hightower was the dumbass that jumped in the river. There's Trollocs all across the bank. Who the hell would think they could go save their son? I would be sitting there hoping my son's hiding in the basement and not even breathing. I wouldn't be thinking I could go across the river and save him.
Or your son
No,
is not
no
a complete
rational
moron
human.
who.
No rational human would do what the writers had this character do. It's just asinine.
Which
It's
pulls
just
you out
terrible.
of it.
Yes.
And the sad result of this fucking scene is I think we've argued for 20 minutes about it, when I think we can all agree this is just beyond
Terrible
retarded.
writing. Yeah.
Well,
Terrible.
I will have to put my
I'll-
time cop hat on and say that I think it's time
Move
to
on.
recharge
Yeah.
glasses and empty bladders, and maybe
Yeah.
take a couple minute break, get some more brandy, Dain, for you, whiskey for me, and I think beers for Alex and Ozzy.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm down to one.
I'm actually on beer, so that's why I'm still lucid, not hiccuping. And
I am rejecting that. You're in my mind. You're drinking brandy.
Dan, you're kicking ass. I haven't heard you repeat yourself once, more than once. So
wait,
just more than I could say about you.
it just occurred to me. Wouldn't this usage of the one power be a weapon?
What the
So
whirlpool?
I actually
The
thought of
whirlpool.
this interestingly. I
only
actually
against fairies, and I don't mean that as a joke.
I did
so.
actually think about this. Like if I use an axe and I smash your car window in, is the axe not a weapon because the car window is not a person? But I really thought that like that's a really sort of technical argument to get down. I could see like, the conversation Varen has with Egwene about blowing up the ground sort of around the Whitecloaks, like that's a weapon but not aimed at a person. I think maybe I see the direction you're going here, but I'm sort of willing to allow a pass that a whirlpool against an empty ferry is not inherently on its own a breach of the three oaths.
Okay, so we're going to say that
that's
it
ultimately
just...
where I want to go with this whole, and the reason why we're having this whole discussion is one of the big things that this episode in particular introduces the audience to are the three oaths. And I think it's pretty clear for me that the writers had no fucking idea what the three oaths actually were.
Agreed.
Or the implications on the wider story.
Yeah.
And that's all where I wanting to go with this particular case, but we'll see this coming up in later scenes and later episodes. And I think we can all agree that, they have no idea what they're doing with regards to the oaths.
All right. Well, does anyone have any saved comments for this, or are we safe to break the seal and take a 5-minute break?
That sounds good.
Groovy.
Perfect. All right.
All right. Alex, you stop recording?
We are done now.